Track 39. 1.
Abdul studies every evening until 9.
2.
Thank goodness you're home before dark.
3.
Arabic is one of the most difficult languages to learn.
4.
Our classes start again in September.
5.
In many Asian countries, the diet is very healthy.
6.
Communication helps people from different cultures to understand each other.
Track 44. Now listen and answer questions 14 to 17. Just to give you an idea of the range of exhibitions we have here at the museum, I'm going to tell you about the exhibitions and activities we have for visitors of different ages. First of all, for the little ones, we have a fascinating area called Shapes and Patterns, where they can play with objects and images and see how they form different patterns. It's really colourful and exciting. Kids love it. Then, at the other end of the scale, we have more complex exhibitions that appeal more to our older visitors. There's one about the history of aviation, how planes developed over the years. Older visitors may even be able to remember some of the earlier planes on display. Another exhibition that adults might particularly enjoy is the energy exhibition. It shows the historical development of different forms of energy in Britain and how it has powered industry over the centuries. And of course, we mustn't forget the teenagers. There are lots of exhibitions to interest them, but my favourite one is the one where visitors can find out more about how physics works. It's a fun exhibition with plenty of hands-on activities that explore how light and heat and chemicals work. I still go there myself now and then. It's brilliant. Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 18 to 20. Track 51. Now listen and answer questions 38 to 40.
Now, I thought I'd finish by just briefly describing a few different patterns of migration. Migration varies with the type of bird and the area they come from. For example, one kind of migration is partial migration. This means that some birds in a particular species will migrate and others won't. It usually depends on how the weather affects food supplies, and very often happens in the tropics. In another migratory pattern, a bird called an Arctic tern migrates the whole length of the globe from the North Pole to the South. The Arctic tern travels between 12 and 15,000 kilometres each way when it migrates in a complete circle around the world. It's quite amazing. Right, and lastly, I'd like to mention a pattern which isn't nearly as spectacular, but is very interesting. And this is the way many birds migrate across North America. In this pattern, the birds fly northwards in the west of the country and then back south again in the east. So, if you imagine it, they're actually migrating in a circular pattern, like the hands of a clock, not in a straight line, as we might think.
That is the end of the listening test. You now have some time to check your answers.
Track 16.
We've really got to decide who does what for our Natural Earth project.
Okay, Alice. Well, we've got all our cloud research, so let's decide how to break it down.
Well, we should probably start by saying how clouds are formed.
Good idea. And then maybe move on to the different types of clouds. We can separate it into low-lying, medium-level, and high clouds. What do you think, Jenny?
Yes, I think that's a good idea. And we should also make a PowerPoint to make it a bit more interesting and put in pictures of the different clouds.
Good idea, Jenny. We should probably have cue cards, too. I'm useless at remembering what to say without them.
Yes, me too. Well, I'm quite happy to organize everything we found out about clouds and make sure it fits into our presentation times.
Actually, I'd better do that. I've got all the research on my computer, so it makes sense. How about if you make the presentation slides, Carl?
Okay, Alice, that's fine by me.
Well, if you guys are going to do that, then I'll look on the internet for pictures of the different types of clouds.
That'll be great, Jenny. I'll also make the prompt cards so we don't forget what we're saying during the presentation.
Sounds great. Let's have a run-through on Tuesday. What sections does everyone want to talk about? I don't really mind.
I hate speaking in front of people, so I'd prefer not to do the introduction.
I don't mind. I'll do that. If you don't want to talk much, then why don't you just do the middle bit about the medium-level clouds?
Yes, I can do the low-level and high-level clouds part. I'm sure Jenny can handle the summarizing too.
Thanks, guys. We can all take questions together.
Track 19. Section 3. You will hear 3 students discussing a group project on weather conditions. First, you will have 20 seconds to look at questions 1 to 7. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 7.
So, I think we'd better start planning what we're going to do for our group project. Have you guys had any ideas?
I was thinking we should do something on extreme weather events, but I think Alex had some different ideas.
Yes, maybe we should look into more localised weather conditions and the effects on the immediate environment.
That's a good idea, Alex, but I don't think we'd be able to get much data on that, and we don't really have time to do our own research. What about doing something about the seasons?
I think the seasons might be a bit too wide-reaching, you know, when we take into account the wind patterns and pressure systems.
Maybe you're right.
Well, how about Tom's idea of extreme weather conditions?
Yes, that sounds like a good idea. It's easy to break down into separate parts, and it certainly sounds more interesting.
I'd quite like to cover monsoons. I've been doing some reading on them and they're quite interesting.
Well, that sounds good. We should maybe take 2 areas each. That would make it easier for us to focus.
Well, we've got lots to choose from. We could do blizzards, heat waves, droughts, cyclones. There are loads. Why don't you do blizzards too, Tom?
I don't fancy doing them, but I wouldn't mind doing something on floods. They're linked to monsoons, I think, so it will be an easy transition. What do you fancy doing, Alex?
Well, I could always cover winds.
But that isn't really extreme enough.
I could do hurricanes. They're pretty exciting. How about doing cyclones, Emma?
I'd rather do heat waves and droughts, I think. I know a bit about them. I don't know anything about cyclones.
Cyclones are really interesting. I can cover them.
That sounds great. I was thinking about doing cyclones, but I'm happy for you to do them.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have 20 seconds to look at questions 8 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 8 to 10.